Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Olympic Museum and this ISU SAYES conference on Safeguarding Perspectives. We're pleased to have you attending here in the room and around 60 ISU members attending online. If you hear the occasional ding, it's because we're still letting them into the meeting. And this conference comes at the end of the SAYES project. We've already had 3 conferences in France, Hungary, and the Netherlands. So we're pleased to finish off the whole project here in Switzerland, the home of the ISU. And when we were thinking about this conference, we wanted to really emphasize how safeguarding is a responsibility of everyone in skating. And that's why we've tried to gather together many different perspectives from different stakeholders in order to see the whole picture. So we are going from the IOC right through to skaters and coaches in clubs, as you'll see. We hope this will give us all a view of the range of work going on in this area and help us all feel that we're all working together in our different ways with our different contributions towards the same goal of protecting skaters and everyone else involved in our sports. As there are quite a lot of sessions and not very much time, please, this is particularly for the people online, keep your questions until the end. You can add them in the chat and we'll pick them up as we go along and ask them in the Q&A session at the end of the day. So in order to kickstart the conference, we're going to play a welcome message from ISU President Jae-Yul Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to join you virtually for the 4th SAYES conference. The SAYES project is an initiative aimed at promoting safe and inclusive environment for young athletes by addressing and preventing sexist and sexual violence. Born from the passion and commitment of our skating community, this project became a reality thanks to the invaluable support of our incredible partners: the European Commission's Erasmus Plus funding program, the French Ice Sports Federation, the Hungarian Skating Federation, and the Royal Dutch Skating Federation, and the NGOs, Colosse au Pied d'Achille, a French child protection organization, and the think tank, Sport and Citizenship. Thank you all for your commitment and collaboration. Safeguarding has always been a core value for the ISU. When we announced safeguarding as one of the key pillars of our Vision 2030, it wasn't just a policy. It was a promise to protect the safety and mental well-being of our skaters. Since then, we made significant progress. The ISU appointed a full-time safeguarding officer. We allocated additional resources to our members to ensure that they have access to the tools, training, and expertise necessary to enhance local safeguarding programs. We updated the ISU Code of Ethics to provide greater protection for our skaters. We joined the FIA-led Online Abuse Coalition to better understand online abuse within our community and to develop measures aimed at shielding skaters from harassing language. Finally, we are working with the IOC Human Rights Department to develop child protection policies. The SAYES project is a big part of our mission to keep our athletes safe. With this customized e-learning tool, we will educate young skaters, coaches, and support personnel on key safeguarding topics. SAYES goes beyond raising awareness. It's helping to shape a culture that prioritizes the rights, well-being, and happiness of our skaters. Thank you again for being part of this important mission. Together, we are building a more supportive environment for our athletes to develop, flourish, and feel safe doing what they love. And ultimately, we are creating a legacy where safeguarding will be seamlessly embedded in every level of our sports. Together, we can go further. Thank you.
Thank you to President Kim for that introduction. And to follow up on the President's words, Irma Bardou, who's the General Secretary of the French Skating Federation, the Fédération Française des Sports de Glace, will say a few words about her federation's reasons for initiating and leading the SAYES project. Over to you, Irma.
Dear all, I'm Irma Bardou, Secretary General of the French Ice Sports Federation. First, I would like to extend my apologies for my absence, as well as that our President, Gwenaël Loury. Both of us are currently in Grenoble, overseeing the organization of the Grand Prix of figure skating final. However, it was important for me to share a few words with you today. Since March 2022, our federation has been leading the SAYES project, supported by funding from the European Union. This action is of great importance to us as part of our efforts to fight against sexual violence and to develop new tools. My colleague, Cyril Savidan, will provide you with further details about the project shortly. In the meantime, please know that the entire federation stands ready to assist with any questions or needs you may have. We are deeply committed to collaborating with you to adopt these tools and to explore opportunities provided by European funding. Such resources can support essential actions, including safeguarding athletes or other subjects. Together, we can and must continue using these tools to take meaningful actions to create a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment for all athletes. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for your attention.
Merci, Irma. Thank you for that introduction to the French Federation's reasons for being involved in this project. So the project...
I'm sorry, my English is not good.
That's okay, we understood and heard you. Thank you very much. So the project Safeguarding Young European Skaters, or SAYES, has been running since late 2021 and was originally set up, as you heard, by the French Federation as a response to a safeguarding case in France. And the project was fortunate enough to receive a European Commission Erasmus Plus funding, and all of the partners are from Europe, of course, but the outcomes are relevant to federations all over the world. In order to explain a bit more about the project and the work that we've done, I'd like to present Cyril Savidan, who's a European Public Partnerships Consultant at the French Federation, who's also joining us online. So over to you, Cyril.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. So I'm sorry for not being here as well in Lausanne with you. I just hope you can hear me well. First, I'd like to thank the International Skating Union for organizing this conference and for giving me the opportunity to present the SAYES project. Actually, the International Skating Union was involved since 2020 in this SAYES project, with the first work we did on the application for EU grant. And it's very important to have international federations involved in this kind of European projects. First, because they have the knowledge, and they also have the opportunity to disseminate good practices. And this is what we are doing now. I'm going to share this slide to show you an overview of the project, and I will say a few words about the next steps we'd like to create. So, as the General Secretary said, SAYES project is very important for our federation, but it is first a cooperative partnerships with different organizations, as you mentioned, Becky. So International Skating Union, but we also have two national federations, the Royal Dutch Skating Federation and the Hungarian Skating Federation. We also have a European think tank called Sport and Citizenship, a university from Lyon, Université Claude Bernard, Lyon 1, and an organization specialized in safeguarding in sports called Colosse au Pied d'Argile. And I would like to thank you all these partners who were also involved since the beginning of this project. Actually, it started in 2020 because, as you mentioned, Becky, we had some sexual abuse revelations from former skaters. So we had to, with a new president, we have to work on different tools, and we needed money for this. So we decided to apply for EU grants, and the project was selected. So we could start the project beginning of March 2022. It started with a conference organized in Montpellier during the World Championships. And the project will end in few days, few weeks, in December 2024. So the question now for us is how to extend the project, first in our federations, with our clubs, with our regional organizations, but also to disseminate it, to be sure that the other federations, your federations, can also use these tools. Bottom left, you can see the different activities. So we got three main objectives. First, the first one was to see if our organizations were able to protect our young skaters. So with the university, we worked on a study. They did some interviews. They compare data. They compare information. They compare our policies to improve the different tools and our organizations. We are now working on an action plan to disseminate the results and to share good practices. The second objective was raising awareness. And to be honest, some people in a few clubs in France thought that we talked too much about this subject. Some of them thought that it was about publicity for our sports. But obviously, it was not our point of view. So we organize conferences. We are working on communication campaign, and we will publish soon a magazine to repeat and repeat and repeat the importance of the fight against sexual violence, and finally all kinds of violences in our sports, and to spread the word. And also to be sure that our clubs could take ownership of these tools. And the last objective was to create direct interventions. So to our skaters, to our coaches, to our managers. So we organized some training and awareness sessions in France. And we are also developing other tools as the eLearning, but we'll talk about it a bit later during this conference. Few words about the resources, because it's very important. I think that if we didn't get this EU fund, we could not work like this on this on new tools, and also with different international partners. So we got money from the Erasmus Plus program. If there are some European organizations, I'm sure you know this Erasmus program, because most of people know this program for universities, but you can also create projects in sports or with young people. So this is what we did, and we got more than 250,000 euros for work on this project. So we had to organize transnational meeting. This is what we did in Netherlands, in Hungary, now in Switzerland. We did also one in France. And we organized multiplayer and dissemination events. We worked with some athletes as ambassadors, and of course with the different human resources of the Partners Federation. We also got a grant in 2022 from the French government when France held the presidency of the Council of the European Union. I'm going to share just some pictures to show you the main events we organized on the next slide. So you can see the conferences and the transnational meetings we organized. So if it's possible to show the next slide, thank you. So top left, you could see a dissemination conference organized in Netherlands, in Herenveen in March 2023 during a speed skating world championship. Bottom right, it was also a conference organized by the Hungarian Federation. So it was an introduction from the Hungarian president. Top right, you can see the first meeting we organized in Montpellier during the World Championship. You can also see Surya Bonali, who is an ambassador of this project. She's a former athlete, everyone knows her. And you can see as well a QR code that we'll published in our ice rinks in France to be sure that all skaters could easily get information. So on this QR code, we'll have the e-learning module we are creating. We'll also have the reporting platform, so different tools, and we thought that it would be easier for them if they just have to scan this QR code to get all the information. On the other slide, you can also see other events we organized in Paris during the General Assembly of the French Federation. So we could talk directly to our clubs to present the tools and to be sure that they can understand what we are doing and how they could also use the tools. With the Paris 2024, it was a transnational meeting we organized with the team. And top left, you can see one intervention from Colosse au Pied d'Argile to coaches and managers to discuss the good practices. Adam Xiao Imfa, a French athlete, was also part of this project with a video. We organized an exhibition with Sarah Abitbol, a former athlete. So yeah, this is the main event and the main tools we created, and we are still working on it. And now this is the subject of the next steps on the next slide, because as I mentioned, the project will finish soon. So we still have to finalize some project results of the publication of the study. And we also have to send the final report to the French Erasmus Plus agency. Tomorrow morning, we'll have the last transnational meeting, and it will be an opportunity for us to discuss the strategy with the partner organizations to see how we'll now use the different tools in our federation and how we'll extend the project locally with our club. It's very important for the project, but also for our policy that the clubs use the tools. And we will share the results, as I mentioned before, with you, the ISU member national associations, the results, but as well the tools, and we will share it as well with the Erasmus Plus network, because I hope that what we did will be useful for you, for the ice sports federations, iSports clubs, but as well for the other sports. We have to share what we did and how we did it. And we're also available to help you if you think that for European organizations that the Erasmus Plus program on another EU institution could help you to finance a project you have. I have to say that it could be also interesting for the organization which are not in European Union. For example, International Skating Union is not, Switzerland is not a EU member state, but we could add them as a partner because the added value was very important. So it's also possible for another organization outside Europe to be part of this kind of project. So if you need help to develop this kind of project with EU funds, we will be available to help you. You have my email, so please don't hesitate to contact us should you have any questions regarding what we did or regarding this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyril. And we already know that there are a couple of NOCs and ISU members who are involved in Erasmus Plus projects. Not all of them are related to safeguarding. There are other issues as well, but it's definitely worth considering applying for that kind of funding if you're an ISU member in the European Union. Okay, now I have the very great pleasure to introduce Kirsty Burrows, Head of Safe Sport at the International Olympic Committee. Kirsty spoke at the 2024 ISU Congress in Las Vegas about safeguarding and mental health of athletes. And some of you, particularly those online, may have heard that presentation. And she's been kind enough to come back and join us again to give us an update on what she and her team have been doing. And also to speak about the newly launched Safeguarding Officer Directory, which I think will be very helpful for all of our members. So welcome, Kirsty.
Thank you so much. That's right. Here we go. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to President Jae-Kim, really a champion, and for inviting me to the Congress back in Las Vegas, and particularly to Christina. The tireless work and collaboration together has been really valued and valuable. So I'm here to talk to you about Safe Sport, as mentioned, an update on our safeguarding initiatives. It's so wonderful to see so many amazing colleagues in the room and champions of these causes. So this is our unit. It's growing. For those of you who've worked together for a while, fortunately, we're having more people joining the team. They all send their best wishes. So the Safe Sport unit in the IOC, we're situated within the medical and scientific department. And under Safe Sport, we have both safeguarding and mental health. So they're the two topics under our portfolio. They are distinct, but with clear intersections between the two. Why do we sit in the medical and scientific department? Well, it's really critical for us, first of all, recognizing both mental health and interpersonal violence being systemic societal issues, and the need to take a public health approach, which we'll see a little bit later in the consensus statement and how impactful that has been. But I just wanted to show you, I think this data, we're about to publish this data. This data is from Gangwon. And what we've been trying to do recently is reimagine how we talk to athletes about safeguarding. Those of you who've worked together for a long time, you might remember that old course that we had, the sexual harassment and abuse in sport one. Do you remember the black images? And it was black and red, and there were case studies and really amazing content, but very heavy, very deep, very dark. And we know both when we talk about safeguarding from interpersonal violence and when we talk about mental health and well-being, we already have so many layers to get over to talk about this with athletes, with anybody. I'm always the least favorite person at the dinner table when someone asks you what you do for a job, because you then start to go into statistics and opening people's eyes to things that nobody wants to think about, aka violence, abuse, harassment. When we asked, this is data from Gangwon, so we asked the athletes in Gangwon, again, making sure that we take an athlete-centered driven approach. And of course, here we're talking about youth athletes or child athletes. We ask them the words that they associate with an unhealthy sports environment. So healthy environment and an unhealthy sports environment. And these were the words. We asked this in 9 different languages, and then we translated back. And you can see here bullying, abuse, dangerous, mental health, bad feeling, disrespect, unhappy, negativity, anger. You can see throughout here that athletes associating all of these things which we would talk about. You can also see here eating disorders and disordered eating, sleep. You see comes through here nutrition. You can see obviously doping. But where the words that were associated with an unhealthy environment for us effectively show what we already know, both interpersonal violence and mental health being social determinants of health, and also a much less scary entry point. Health and well-being a much less scary entry point when we talk to athletes and want to raise awareness about safeguarding and also about mental health and well-being. This was also then the basis of our latest consensus statement. It has just been published. It was published last week on Monday. It's the 3rd in our consensus statements. I've put a QR code up here if you'd like to download it if you haven't seen it already. But also then the latest IOC consensus statement was therefore rooted within a public health approach, especially when it comes to implementation science. Effectively, how do we move from the literature to implementation and then monitoring evaluation and ensuring impact of the initiatives? The new consensus, it was grounded in a review of over 24,000 articles. I have to say thank you to the army of PhD students who supported us here, because as you can imagine, again, in 9 languages. And it proposes 43 actionable, what we call solutions in the consensus statement. Some of the key things that come out of the consensus statement focus on the need to prioritize relational health and that ethic of care, bless you, to integrate safeguarding within the values of safe sport, recognizing, and again, Sergio Lara Berchal's work is within here. You'll be familiar with that. I talk about it a bit later as well, but recognizing that safe sporting environments are synonymous with high performance environments. The need to implement trauma-informed and violence-informed care and practice, that it's not a nice to have, but it's a must have. Also, recognizing the cross-victimization of those who have experienced violence, whether it's inside of sport or outside of sport, the cross-victimization you get between the ecosystems. Embedding principles of implementation science to really processes that promote real-world uptake, how to measure effectiveness, and integrate contextually appropriate evaluation methodologies. And that contextually appropriate part is something that we're really, really focusing on now, particularly recognizing the breadth of the Olympic movement and cultures and contexts that we need to consider. So the definition of safe sport, it's also in the consensus statement now. So as I mentioned, safe sport being safeguarding and mental health. So the definition of safe sport is fostering psychologically and physiologically safe and supportive athletic environments where participants can thrive and experience the full benefits of sports participation. It also shows a new socio-ecological model. And for us, this was key and critical. We always said, and you can see this in the 2016 consensus statement, sport does not exist within a vacuum, right? And it is not immune from wider societal ills. That is quote unquote directly from the 2016 consensus statement. Well, violence also doesn't exist within a vacuum. And oftentimes, and I feel this, we often talk about this a lot when we look at a breadth of issues, whether it be doping or competition manipulation or safeguarding or other areas, we look at it very much on an individual or an interpersonal level, and we don't look at actually the factors around that, right up to the macro system that are actually contributing to or directly enabling these behaviors. So instead of focusing just on the interpersonal level, of course, related to the individual interpersonal level of interpersonal violence, the new socio-ecological model goes out to look at all forms of violence, looking at the individual, organizational, sectoral, society, and temporal enablers and factors for contribution. So all of this is in the latest IOC consensus statement that we just published. And why is this important? Well, for us, it's really critical, and what we want to be able to do is to support all sports organizations in terms of how we can ensure that the methods and the measures that we are suggesting, we are recommending, we are implementing will actually work and have an impact. And it is so critical and so crucial and so challenging when you come to something as sensitive and as contextualized as safeguarding. But the central message is that, as I mentioned, safe sport equals excellence. And this, if you don't know the study, I love this study, and I really think the authors did a fantastic job, and I hope it, long may it continue. Mallet and Sergio Lara-Berchel in 2016, they wrote a book actually, but also a paper on serially successful coaches. And it was 12 or 14 coaches who had won over 100, whose athletes had won over 100 medals. And they looked at what united them in terms of their coaching style and philosophy. What was the common thread on these serially successful coaches? And they found that it was related to vision, environment, and people. Their central ethos of their coaching strategy was one of respectful determination, respect for the athlete as a person. And I think this is really key and critical, because when we talk about safeguarding, there's different ways to try and get people on board, you know, hearts and minds. And a lot of the time, for me, it's like listening to the stories of the incredible people you speak to and saying, we need to do this. For others, it might be learning about the prevalence rates of interpersonal violence in the context of sport. For others, it might be, this is a huge issue across the world, and sport is recognized as an agent for change in this, but only if we address our own house first. But a lot of the time for sports organizations, and especially high performance levels, it's about what works, right? If we really want to it's about breaking down preconceived notions of this kind of idea that in order to create diamonds, you have to put people under as much pressure as possible, and that's how diamonds are created. But this work actually tells us something completely different, and that actually care and respectful determination is synonymous with high performance environments. Safe sporting environments are environments which promotes excellence, and that's how we can start to change the culture. So we work really closely with our Olympism 365 department as well, which is our department that looks at the role sport can play in promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is a really key and critical message for us because, again, as I mentioned before, we can safeguard both in and through sport, but only if the context of sport itself has safeguarding embedded deliberately and determinately within the culture and the ethos. And the way that we look at this is by looking at across the 4 mutually reinforcing pillars of safeguarding. So strengthening safeguarding across the continuum in terms of laws, policies, and institutions, with Olympism 365 that works more, this is sort of our sport for development arm, in terms of the work on prevention, the work on response, and critically partnerships. And this is central to the ethos of our Safe Sport Regional Hub initiative. So those of you may be aware that thanks to you, international federations in the room, particularly in response to the IF needs assessment we did in 2022. By the way, you're about to get another one. I hope that's okay. Because it was really instrumental in helping us to define the key challenges and what international federations really needed and what athletes needed due to cases being escalated from the national level to the international level. The IOC announced a $10 million fund per Olympiad to strengthen response to safeguarding within sport. So separate to the work of the Safe Sport Unit in terms of working with IFs, with NOCs, in terms of strengthening safeguarding mechanisms, separate to Olympism 365, who works on grassroots and community programs to strengthen the role of sport for sustainable development, separate from Olympic Solidarity, who provides funding to national Olympic committees to strengthen their safeguarding mechanisms. This was designed to be independent, something that would sit outside of sport, and would specifically focus on improving access, facilitating access to care and support at the local and regional level for anybody harmed by interpersonal violence. Recognizing that without that, we can have great policies and procedures in organizations, but people will feel that they cannot access them. Because without care, guidance, and support, it's a central part of breaking down the barriers to being able to access recourse and remedy pathways. So we're well on the way with this initiative. We've now established 2 consortias. One is, well, one is in the final stages of being established, but effectively one is in Southern Africa and one consortium which has been established in the Pacific Islands. What was really important for us was that in theory, it's quite easy to hire an office, hire some fantastic safeguarding people and say, this is now the hub in Southern Africa. But we knew that wouldn't work. The only way to really make these hubs work and to ensure that those who have been harmed by interpersonal violence trust them and feel they can access them is if the hubs are designed to meet the needs of the region. So what I think the hubs will be may be completely different from what the hub will be. And what the hub will be in Southern Africa may be completely different to the hub in the Pacific Islands, because it needs to be designed based on the needs of the people in the region. It needs to be based on listening to the voices of those who have been impacted and hearing their specific concerns within the region. That's why we're now conducting the local consortia that we've established of regional experts. We went through a whole long RFP. Identify them. They're now conducting an extensive feasibility study in those two regions, specific for those two regions, to establish the best way that the hubs will work and do a mapping and gap analysis of what already exists. So what psychosocial support is available, be it public or private, what civil society organizations exist to support women who have been victims of violence, what legal aid networks might be available. So they're currently, we're in phase 1. Those hubs will be in their pilot operations by the beginning of 2026, and hopefully, all going well, formalized into legal entities in 2027, and we'll then seek to scale that across the Olympic movement with an independent entity or initiative at the international level governing that. So it will move outside of the IOC. We're very much the interim secretariat for this initiative. So again, the IOC applied model, we based it on a 7P approach of addressing gender-based violence by MERGAT. So it looked at prevalence, promotion, protection or prevention, person-centered response, provision of services, policies, and partnerships, leadership, and governance. So this is infiltrated all the way through the work that we're doing with the Regional Hub Initiative. Listening to the voices of athletes, I will go through this quite quickly because I know you've got a full program today, but this is just some more of the data that we have from Gang 1, and I think it's really, really important and interesting. You can see here, we had answers from all of the disciplines there in Gang 1, speed skating, short track speed skating, and figure skating. And we asked them a series of questions. Again, we will publish this paper, but we asked them, for example, what constitutes abuse for them, like their perspective and their considerations of what constitutes abuse. And this will be published in a journal. So I would ask you, feel free to take photos. Please don't post them yet until the article's published. So this was about trying to understand their perception of what actually is abusive, because we know abuse can often be normalized. We actually then told them that all of the things listed were forms of abuse, and we asked them if that surprised them. And as you can see, 34% said yes and 66% said no. We asked them if you think harassment and abuse occurs in your sport. This, by the way, this study is one that we also did in Lausanne. We also did in Buenos Aires. We will also do it in Dakar. So we're actually doing it longitudinally as well, so we can track the differences and the changes in perceptions. Here, we've pulled out the data from the athletes specifically for skating because we're with the ISU today. But here's the overall data as well. So you can see here, 18% saying very likely, 26% saying likely, and 11% saying very likely, and 23% saying likely, so all the participants. And that's over 1,200 athletes, youth and child athletes responding to this, which is fantastic. Who would you go to if you were to report something? I found this very, very interesting. So the police or a helpline, very low. They were saying that these aren't the mechanisms that they would necessarily use. You can see here someone in their club, someone in their family, safeguarding officer, the highest ranked here, and that's why it's really, really important to have safeguarding education and training, a base level of knowledge, how to respond and who to go to if somebody does disclose, centralized across the system and the environment, because somebody in my club could be anybody in the club, and that's why we say also in the consensus statement that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. This I thought was really positive. We asked them how much they agreed with the following, and you can see here, completely agree is the dark green, agree is the green, and then we go to disagree or completely disagree with red and amber. I thought here actually the results are quite positive, though of course always still work to do, but we asked them if there was always someone they could trust and share their concerns with, if they feel accepted for who they are, if they felt treated fairly and respectfully. Again, this is across all of the winter sports in Gangwon. If they get medical care when they need it, if their environment listens to them and takes them seriously, and if they're comfortable asking for mental health support whenever needed. And see, we've definitely got some work to do there. By the way, if you're interested in repeating this survey, we're very happy to ask the questions, because I think it's really important to continue to get data sets in different areas, and we can also, very happy to share anything and everything that can help and support. Finally, I just want to go through, I mentioned at the beginning how we're changing our approach to safeguarding and why we feel this is important. I want to go through a little bit about what happened in Paris. So for Paris, as I mentioned, our entry point was well-being. We moved away from harassment, abuse. We moved away from mental health, illness, anything like this. And we looked at an approach which could intersect the continuum, recognizing both safeguarding and mental health, both interpersonal violence and mental health are on a continuum. The earlier you can intersect that continuum, the higher the likelihood you can reduce the harm that is being caused. And also an approach which would tackle the stigma around these two topics, and also improve access to care, guidance, and support. So again, this is an adapted, I've adapted this. This is originally the mental health continuum, but we've adapted it to be appropriate for both interpersonal violence and mental health. Previously, all of our initiatives at the Olympic Games were basically in the polyclinic. We were, even Susan and I, those of you that know, we were stuck in the polyclinic, which is fine, it's a great place, lovely people, but it's very medicalized. And even during the games where we had COVID, you had to have an appointment to get in there. So the barrier is so high to seeking that support. In Beijing, we started the Mentally Fit Helpline. That's a helpline that's available 24/7 in over 70 languages. We had that available during the games and for 3 months afterwards. For Paris, we made this available during the games and for the next 4 years. So it's for the next 4 years for any Olympian or Paralympian that competed in Paris. We do recognize, and we got feedback from some of the NOCs, particularly those with very good mental health support. They said, well, this isn't something our athletes are going to use. That's okay. What we wanted to make sure was that there was something available for everyone, for anyone in over 70 languages. Even if one person needs it and is in crisis and uses it, that's absolutely, that was what was important for us. What was critical here, though, is it's not a helpline in terms of it's not only for a crisis line, it's a well-being line. They have trained counselors across the world, and they can also support people who might be experiencing interpersonal violence but don't want to go to anybody in the sports sector or anybody close to them but would like support from such a system. We also had the Mind Zone, and I would like to congratulate ISU because we've been talking about the potential to have a Mind Zone also, and this would be fantastic. This was absolutely phenomenal. The athletes loved it. It wasn't a space to give them messages, promote anything. It was a space for them to disconnect, for them to decompress. It was staffed by my team, 14 hours a day. They did a great job. Kudos to Gloria and Scott, who had been trained in mental health first aid. And honestly, the athletes said, you know what, we've been waiting for this. Before, we were doing our mindfulness practice in a corridor or, in a bathroom or something like this. So finally, there's a space like this. And honestly, ours was quite high tech. It doesn't have to be. But having a dedicated space for people to disconnect and decompress was highly, highly successful. And it actually led to 40% of the concerns, well-being concerns that happened during the games came to us because of people walking into the Mind Zone and actually saying, hey, you know what, can I have a chat? Or one of the team recognizing someone was not doing so well and saying, is everything okay? And they were like, can we have a talk? And that's really good because, again, we know it's happening. So it's better to ensure that to lower the barriers to that help seeking. We had 152 welfare officers. So they were either trained safeguarding officers or licensed and registered mental health practitioners. So 152 welfare officers from 74 NOCs. And we also had 41 safeguarding focal points in the International Federation. So those of you from the summer IFs that were there, thank you so much. And that network of support was, I think, one of the most important. That network of practice was really, really good and important. And Gloria actually developed a 6-part program in order to build that community of practice, and it went really, really well. So thank you for that. And finally, we had the cyber abuse protection system. The cyber abuse, well, this is just going through what I've just said before, but the 150, it's like, this is testing that I knew the numbers. 152 from 74, that's what I said, right? Yeah. 6-part program, 40, yes, okay, so I'm good on the numbers. I've said all of this. For those of you, that's the president doing our paint by numbers, that was a particular favorite of mine, the paint by numbers. All of the initiatives in the Mind Zone are evidence-based. It went from the very technical, such as a bespoke VR-guided mindfulness activity, which was awesome, to the very, very simple, like the paint by numbers. But there's something about doing the paint by numbers where you're contributing to something bigger and you get the positive reinforcement with every part that you get, which was really, really calming and really well received. Unfortunately, I thought it played, but maybe I'll send you the video afterwards if you're interested. But this is an example. So the VR, it took you through into the Olympic Stadium and it did breath work with you. You could either choose preparation for exercise or you could choose mindfulness and relaxation. So during that, we had 2,300 VR sessions from athletes from 148 countries during Paris. We also had 4,000 gratitude postcards sent. So again, there doesn't have to be high-tech initiatives, but we ran out of postcards. The athletes love them. And that gratitude experience, as we know, is rooted in the evidence base. The gratitude practices are very well known for having a positive impact on mental health and well-being. And as I mentioned, we had that 90% of the athletes that came there said they were either satisfied or very satisfied. So one message, if you'd like to do a Mind Zone or something like it, or just a space to disconnect or decompress, please let us know. Scott from my team who led that with Chantel, they were amazing. And we actually did this with Powerade. So they co-invested in it with us. So it's something that also sponsors and brands are really, really interested in promoting as well. So you don't have to do it all on your own. And thank you very much to Powerade for that. And this is what was underneath it. So what was important for us is it wasn't just like having a nice spa area which looks good and athletes post on social media and it looks very cool and fancy, but it was actually about ensuring that as soon as there was any sign that someone might need further support, that there was a complex ecosystem of initiatives and support pathways already pre-established. So we knew we had a mental health emergency action plan, we had all of the welfare officers, we were able to ensure that anybody needing further support, whether that be due to interpersonal violence, whether that be due to mental health, whether that be due to anything, that we had a system in place and that was predetermined. And again, happy to share any and all of these initiatives if they are helpful. And finally, the Cyber Abuse Prevention Protection Service. This was the largest in terms of size and scope. At the Olympic Games Paris 24, all athletes with a social media account were covered, unless they actively decided not to be. And we also covered 280 officials. That was on an opt-in basis, but anyone that was being targeted that wasn't signed up for it, we added them in. We covered 4 social media channels across 35 languages, including text, images, GIFs, and emojis. This is really, really important because the manipulation of images is to turn into a death threat was something we've seen even a couple of editions of the games ago. So the ability to be able to, and that particular one was in Mandarin, that threat that came across, that was a doctored image by someone on the internet. So it was really important not just to have the languages, but also the text and image and GIF and emojis, etc. And the results, if you haven't seen them, the AI scanned 2.4 million posts and comments mentioning an athlete's handle or an official's or team's handle. And of those, 10,200, just over 10,200 posts and comments were verified as abusive. This means breaching the community guidelines or potentially criminal in nature. And I have to tell you also now, unfortunately, from personal experience, it takes a lot to breach those community guidelines. So this is really very nasty content that was going towards 353 athletes and officials during the games. And this came from nearly 9,000 unique accounts, so not bot accounts, 9,000 unique accounts sending this abuse. As we know, just one more word on that, as we know, online abuse causes real embodied harm. So it was really important for us that we had the systems in place. First of all, any abusive content was escalated to the platform for removal. Anything criminal was packaged and sent to law enforcement. And most importantly, the Safe Sport unit were informed with a red, amber, green level system. Anything red, we immediately went to the team around the athletes through predetermined channels, right? You don't just go to someone and say, hey, have you checked X? Because that's what happened to me. And then you look at it and you're like, whoa. So you say, we had predetermined channels for how we would let somebody know that they were being targeted and make sure the support was available. And Amber was within 24 hours and ensured that they had access to support. I have to say, one of the things we saw a lot was athletes' families being targeted, and that was one of the most harmful and impactful things, and the athletes were the concern for their loved ones at home. And for the Summer Olympic International Federations, we will be developing a report now, which is sport by sport, so you can actually look at any abuse that went towards the typology, the abuse, how it manifested, what the trigger points were, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going through analyzing this data set and really keen to share this. And we'll be doing this for Milano Cortina as well, and really keen to share this with each international federation so that in case the information can help and support you in terms of guidance and advice for athletes on online violence. So finally, I'm ending up now, I promise. I want to say the last thing, Christina asked me to mention our platform, which has just been launched. It's on Athlete 365. It's a directory. As you may know, we have a safeguarding officer in sports certificate, a 7-month program with 3 exams. Have a couple of students and graduates in the room, so thank you very much. We now have 343 students and graduates from 99 countries. And we've launched a directory, which is available on Athlete 365. You can also search it on Google, just say IOC Safeguarding Officer Directory. And you can search for a safeguarding officer who has agreed to be on here. So we're GDPR compliant, don't worry. And you can search them by the language they speak, where they are, the kind of safeguarding service you're looking for, the organization type, or search them by name. And you can also find their contact details if they've agreed for them to be there. This is to support athletes, of course, first and foremost, or all participants, but also to support sports organizations to further strengthen safeguarding measures at the local level. So looking to find a locally trained safeguarding expert. I think I'm done now. Just to say thank you so much again for this invitation to speak here. As you can see, it's clearly a passion topic, but it's really, really great to be here with so many like-minded individuals and champions as well, people I really look up to in the field of safeguarding from across the international federation. So thank you so much. We have a number of tools available. Everything that we do is to give out to sports organizations. If there's something that we're not doing and you think we should be doing, please do let us know. But of course, we have tools and courses available covering education, research. We have toolkits, fact sheets, guidelines with the community of practice, if you'd like to join that and you're trained through the Safeguarding Officer Certificate or the Mental Health Certificate and Diploma. Grants are also available for the Olympic Solidarity and Athlete Commissions grants available. And finally, the courses that we have as well. So lots of different ones, but if there's something else we can do to support, we are always here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kirsty, for this update, and the work you're doing, you and your team, is really appreciated sincerely by everyone. Obviously, everyone here, but the athletes, as you said, at the games, and even those who aren't at the games, who benefit indirectly from the initiatives that you're creating. So thank you. Okay, so now we're going to have the first of today's panel sessions, and this will bring together 3 international federation approaches to safeguarding: the Gymnastics Federation, horse riding, and of course, the ISU skating. And I'm pleased to introduce Eva Jacome, who's the head of EU affairs at a think tank in Brussels called Sport and Citizenship. And she's a member of the SAYES project group, and she'll be the moderator for the session.
Thank you very much, Becky, and very pleased to meet you all and to be there today. And welcome to this first roundtable we will discuss a bit more about the federation level perspective and the common challenge and the different solution we can have at the federation level at an international level. So I'm Eva Jacome, I'm the head of the EU affairs of the think tank Sport and Citizenship, and I will have the pleasure to moderate the discussion. To mine at Sport and Citizenship International Federation have a critical role in leading the way by setting standards, raising awareness, and supporting national federation and athletes in creating safer environments. I think we had a very good incentive and very good example through the IOC. So it paved me the way for continuing. So I'm very pleased to welcome for this first panel a representative of the International Equestrian Federation, the International Skating Union, as well as the Gymnastic Ethics Foundation. If you would like to join us, Onia, Alexander, and Christina, and I will present you in greater details later. Thank you, Christina. It's even the speaker that is brought in the... I should have bring it, sorry. Given we have quite a limited time, so I skip further introduction and I will go straight to our first speaker, Onia. I will try to pronounce your name in the right way. So you're the Deputy Legal Director at the International Equestrian Federation, but you're also a member of the UEFA Appeals Body and of the UEFA Control, Ethics and Disciplinary Board. Maybe a first question. In 2019, your federation published a safeguarding policy against harassment and abuse. Could you explain a bit more the reason behind this adoption and also how it changed a bit the way the federation was addressing sexual abuse and harassment toward athletes? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so 2019, it's 5 years ago. It seems a long time now. Long time ago now, and I think the reality was in 2019 we realized that whether we were ready or not, it was time for us as a federation to tackle the issue of safeguarding. The IOC had published one of their first consensus statements back in 2016 and then came out with a toolkit, and we could really see the direction that this was going, and we felt it was better to try to get ahead of things rather than to wait to be forced to do it and then maybe to be rushing. But that's not to say that it was easy in any way or a little bit, and I'm sure other colleagues from national federations and international federations know a little bit the daunting task of kind of, you know, the blank Word document with the cursor kind of flicking. We had to kind of come up. So we had the template from the IOC, but then it was about shaping it to see how it suited our sport. But as a first step, before we went ahead with that, we approached our top management to make sure that we had their buy-in and that they would support us, because even though we thought we could do at least the initial work internally, there is always the question of resources. And as international federations, national federations know, resources are limited. And luckily enough, they were very much in favor of it, and they gave us the green light to go ahead. So I think that is, if you're an NF or an IF who haven't started yet or about to start, it's very important to get that buy-in from the top. Of course, there was some people within our community who felt, you know, what are you talking about? We don't have a problem with this in our sport. We're equestrian, you know, we know the equestrian, that it's unlikely that we have an issue. And we were saying, well, if it's an issue in society, sport is... sport is part of society. But once we kind of had that ideological discussion, got the buy-in, we came up with a policy, and then we had a policy. The question is then, but what do we do with it? How do we implement it? Who in the federation is going to be responsible for it? And, you know, there's not a lot of a queue of people putting up their hands saying, please, can I be in charge of safeguarding? It's not like that. And it was made clear to us that at the time we didn't have the funds for additional headcount. So it came to be that it sat with us in our legal team. So there are 3 of us in the office who are members of our legal department, and we are the FEI safeguarding team. And the way we structured it, it's quite interesting because it's just the 3 of us who have access to it. Now we did succeed in lobbying. We got some additional budget, and we have the pleasure of working with Lucy as our external consultant. So she's part of that small group, but basically we have operational independence, and which means that only the 3 of us plus our Lucy as consultant have any information on the cases. So even if somebody picks up the phone to our Secretary General or President and they say, oh, you know, we heard that you're about to impose a provisional suspension on our athletes. Do you know anything about it? They can hand on heart say, no, I don't, because the way it's structured here is that they don't. And so that means that they cannot have outside influence on our decisions. It gives the kind of confidence to a victim or somebody reporting it that it stays in this very tight group. We can't promise complete confidentiality because perhaps if somebody's at risk, we need to let some people know. But that's the way we set it up. I think it works pretty well. We've come a long way in 5 years, but we're by no means perfect. We're experiencing difficulties. We have a lot to do. We need to work more with our national federations. From our perspective as international federation, I think that's where more work needs to be done. National federations are the same as us. They have limited budget, but we truly feel that there are many cases where it would be more appropriate for the national federation to deal with it than us as IF because of language, cultural issues. They understand the sport in their country. So that's where trying to bring the federations on a journey with us and trying to, a bit like us, that they voluntarily adopt this before we have to put the gun to their head and say, now you must do it, a bit like our anti-doping rules. So that's where we are. You know, we're learning as we're going. As I say, we're far from perfect, but we're trying to do our best.
Yeah, but I guess it's the very interesting point of this panel is like what I found very interesting in your presentation. It was like trying to build a framework, not starting from scratch, but barely, and trying to involve also the National Federation in this movement. I think it's maybe something that you will relate to Alexander McLean. Thank you very much for being with us today. So you're the director of the Gymnastic Ethics Foundation. You're also a member of the Court of Arbitration for Sport and the Association of International Federation of Olympic Summer Sport Governance Task Force. The first question I would like to ask you is maybe about, it's quite something different between Equestrian Federation and the gymnastic one, because there is this Gymnastic Ethics Foundation. Can you explain us a bit more the role of the foundation, its nature, and how it works as an independent body of the International Federation of Gymnastic? Sorry.
Of course. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure to be among like-minded people who care about these issues, because we tend to work in our own corners and deal with what at the end of the day can be very sort of lonely issues, right? I mean, they're difficult issues, and we always wish we could do more than we can do from our perspective. And so it's, at least to me, it's very, it's always heartwarming to come together with others dealing with the same issues. So the Gymnastics Ethics Foundation was created in, well, officially in 2019. So around about the same time, that seems to have been a time at which a number of IFs started to seriously grapple with these issues. And it was determined at the time by the International Gymnastics Federation. This was after the Nasser scandal in the US, which was obviously a huge impetus for the need to address this issue systemically. And it was felt that there was a need for independence. There was a need for independence with respect to reporting, such that the reporting line could be trusted. There's a need for independence with respect to investigation and adjudication of the cases, and also with respect to compliance oversight, whether for the International Federation itself or for its members. So that was those are the three core functions of the foundation today, and it does have the benefit of being independent from a governance standpoint. So we do have a foundation council that has some links to gymnastics by virtue of the fact that one of the seats on the council is reserved to a former gymnastics executive. However, they can't be part of the structure any longer within the IF. One of the seats is reserved to an IOC member, so there's a link to the Olympic family. One has to be a Swiss lawyer, I believe. And then there's sort of 3 free seats. We're lucky to have a former Swiss head of state as president, who can therefore speak with some authority and some independence. Obviously, the independence is always somewhat relative, and we are financially dependent on the International Federation. I think in sort of the medium term, we'd like to see some of the funding coming from outside the sport, but I think it's natural that the sport should fund a good part of that effort, because we are focused on that problem within the sport. I should also say that there are 2 critical parts of the equation which were not assigned to the foundation, and those are education and prevention. So there's a safe sport unit within the federation, which is dealing with those issues, and that leads to some coordination challenges, I would say. I mean, we're dedicated when it comes to handling cases with the notion that each case should contribute to the systemic solution. So when we adjudicate a case, or when we handle a report, we're constantly thinking, okay, what are the implications, not only for those directly affected, but for the organizations which either are affected because they're part of the problem, or because they need to be part of the solution. How do we take this particular case and make sure that it moves us forward, moves us to a better system? And we introduced a couple of years ago a strategic framework, which is very much based on that notion, and it's based on an ecosystem model, and that really looks at all of the players in the system, whether individuals or institutions, and what role they have to play, because we're keenly aware that we're operating in an ecosystem where all of these different players have a role.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I think it were some very good points about the necessity of the need of an independence, and also what you said is it's all about learning from the different case and trying to build due to this case a better system, a more adept system. I guess it might be something that will resonate a bit with for you, Christina. You're the International Skating Union Safeguarding Officer. You follow the courses of the IOC also. Could you maybe share the insight of the ISU strategy in this regard?
To sum it, as I think everybody has said here, for us is dissemination of the capacity building that we are doing. But to start from the beginning, in 2022, a safeguarding officer was appointed. The athlete safeguarding policy was in place before that, and of course the code of ethics. After that, we have been focusing a lot on building capacity for our ISU members, because we understand that amongst ISU members, they have very different capacity. So we started from first announcing in the ISU Congress, and this June 2024, the ISU President announced an additional financial contribution to strengthen the efforts of safeguarding of ISU members. But this is a financial contribution, right? They still need human resources. So we, also our tiny safeguarding team dedicated to the task of creating templates for them to almost, let's say, and they know this because I communicate with them one-on-one sometimes, almost copy-paste. So we have toolkits, templates for safeguarding policies, for code of conducts. Even we offer regional examples from other sports entities, but that might make more sense for them regionally. So when I discuss with them one-on-one that I did it during the Congress, or then after that online, and I still have to meet more, I tell them that we are here to assist them, so to make their work easy, because sometimes one person duplicates or triplicates the job at the International Federation, right? So they are not a dedicated safeguarding officer. So that's in terms of documentation to build a sound safeguarding, let's say, legal or procedural part. But then we have created, with our partners, the eLearning SAYES course that's focused for young skaters. But then we have another one that is an e-learning that we created with other IFs. So it's always nice to have collaborative effort with other IFs and then learn from each other. See, we have similar challenges as well. We created this together with UNICEF. It's 3 free courses that I'm sure we can develop that later. But these are free tools for them to use and for their safeguarding focal points to learn about safeguarding. So we've covered the policy, the capacity building, the financial, and the learning, let's say, the knowledge. And we're working, as all of us, I think, in disseminating that.
Thank you very much, Christina, for this insight. I think it was also very interesting, and we do have at the end of this first roundtable a great view of what is the different possibility of how to implement within your federation framework and how to adapt it to your sport. So I think it was very interesting in this way. I think one of the main issues that was raised was about how do you report and how you handle case, especially when you mentioned this need of independence, I think. Anya, within the federation, you're responsible for case investigation. How do you manage this? How do you manage this investigation? Is it internally or do you rely on external experts, and why you choose to work on this way?
Yeah, it's a good question and a very practical one. I'm always really careful with the word investigation. I'm always back and forth with our communications department, because sometimes when a report comes in, their instinct is to say, and we're investigating this. And once you say investigating, sometimes you create an expectation that there's a huge, big investigative report going to be produced at the end of it. So what I always keep the word investigation for the more serious cases where we formally have an investigation. So for every report that we come in, I always say we look into it first. So we explore, and that we do internally together with Lucy as our consultant. We contact, we verify, we contact maybe the witnesses that I mentioned in the initial report. So we kind of scope out the issue. And then we can categorize it as to what level of seriousness it is. Some of them are what we call maybe like sports-related incidents, a dispute between two people, relatively straightforward, pretty low on the seriousness side. There, we don't need an investigation in order to move it towards a resolution. Of course, if we're talking about a case of reported sexual assault or rape, totally different category there. And in that situation, of course, we would launch an investigation. And for those cases, typically we would hire an external investigator, somebody that's specialized in safeguarding, trauma-informed approach, etc. What we do find in those more complex investigations, there may be a parallel criminal investigation. It's something to be very careful. We want to make sure that we, trying to do our best, don't in any way jeopardize a criminal proceeding. So quite often what we do, we will pause our investigation pending the outcome of the criminal proceedings. And in the interim, we may decide if we feel, again, with kind of a risk-based approach, if we feel there's still a high risk of this person to the community, even though the allegations have not been 100% confirmed yet, we may decide to impose a provisional suspension on that person pending the outcome of the criminal case and or our investigation. And then we do our best to get some information from the criminal authorities. And it's amazing, it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, how much information they will share. I mean, I've called up literally a police station in Australia about a case that we had. They told me everything. I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, keep going. But it was very helpful for me. And in the same time, I've called a police station in the UK and they would tell me nothing. They wouldn't even, but so you have to deal with this. And then once you know if there's a criminal conviction, it's relatively easy to know what to do on our side. But if the person is not, if it's not brought forward, we may still need to take some action again with the risk-based approach. Just because it has not met the criminal standard, we may still want to investigate it to explore what is the risk to our community of this person. So it's quite complex. It's very much case by case, and for the more complex cases, to come back to your question, we would tend to use a specialized investigative resource external for that in most cases.
Thank you very much, and it shows a bit the need to adapt what you say, to adapt to each case, and also to adapt to the national context. It's quite important when you're, especially when you're in international federation. Maybe if I can ask to Alexander if you have any reaction and how you deal a bit with investigating the case within the gymnastic area, maybe.
A lot of similarities with what Anya just said. Yes, this issue of what is an investigation is important because you do create those expectations. So I mean, we actually have that in our procedures. You know, what's an assessment, right? What's an initial assessment that you need to make as soon as the report comes in? How does that differ? At what point does an actual investigation get triggered? What are the expected outcomes in terms of process and so forth? So that certainly resonates. In terms of the management of potentially parallel proceedings, the existence of criminal investigations, same issue, that's also baked into our procedures. So if there is an official criminal investigation in the relevant jurisdiction, we will press pause. And then we will routinely reassess, is there an outcome? What is that outcome and what does it mean for us? Again, different standard of proof, so it doesn't necessarily mean there's no criminal conviction. It doesn't mean we don't go further. The risk-based approach is also something we've adopted because it allows us obviously to mitigate ongoing risk, and they're a completely different rationale from the determination of guilt or innocence that you would expect from the typical adjudication. And there are cases in which you need to address that earlier on, and you need a rationale that you can stand behind in order to explain why you're excluding people when you think it's necessary. So I think those are becoming part of the norm, really, in handling these sorts of cases. Unfortunately, it's all still very ad hoc, despite the fact that you need these tools. Each case is really different, and just a minor change in circumstance can have a real impact on how a case should be handled, if only due to the individual sensitivities of the people involved. And that means it's much harder to standardize approach than it is, for example, in anti-doping. And as a result, it's resource intensive. So similar sort of considerations also with respect to what does an investigation look like if you go there? What are the sort of skill sets that you need? How much can you do internally? How much do you need to outsource? What are the skill sets that you need in your team overall? Those are all questions which routinely arise, and there the network effect is super important. Kirsty, thank you for sharing the network. I think that body of alumni will become more and more relevant over the years as each and every one of them goes out into the field and does their thing and develops their own experience, and that will become a huge resource to all of us. So we need to continue to keep talking. It's interesting to see how each of our organizations are evolving around these issues and where they're similar and where they may diverge. But I think that the key learnings that we can garner from each of these cases where there are, new insights, I think we shouldn't hesitate to share those because we'll all benefit.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think you had a good word of conclusion saying that we do need to share the different insights from the case and all the different way of going toward a framework for safeguarding within the different sport and within the different federation. That's quite important. I would like just to go back maybe briefly to what you mentioned, Christina. We were discussing a lot about case, and just maybe to go back a bit more to the need for capacity building and the need of supporting the national federation, because I do think that is something very decisive and very critical too. Can you maybe a bit explain us in greater details the type of training you provide to national federation and how we can properly strengthen their safeguarding capacities?
So as mentioned, we developed this e-learning course that is focused for young skaters and that it's meant to be led with an adult, but I will explain that later. Then we have these 3 e-learning courses developed with other IFs and UNICEF. And one is called Safeguarding Essentials. That's what we are asking all of our ISU members. It's 90 minutes and it can be done at their own pace. So we're asking all our ISU members to spread, disseminate this one with clubs, with the coaches, with staff, with the volunteers. And then there's other 2 courses, Safeguarding in Practice and Effective Safeguarding. This is the pack of 3 courses. That's the one that we expect the safeguarding focal point within each ISU member to do. So in terms of training, that's it. And that's why I communicate one-on-one sometimes with the ISU members to insist to them that they do this course and they spread it and they spread awareness. So for us, it's a lot about raising awareness, education, sharing the knowledge, either by the e-learning courses or by knowing how to build a sound safeguarding documentation, policies, procedures, case management.
Thank you very much. Maybe a last question to Alexander and Anya, if you want to react maybe about a few best practices you would like to share and you would like to be a bit more developed within a national federation. I will ask you a quick answer since we need to leave the space for the following panel.
Yeah, I'd say there's no good time to start, but so just start. Even if you don't have anything, just get the ball rolling, and then, it's better to make a mistake trying to do the right thing than if you never do anything, you won't make any mistakes, but you will also not address it. So that's my advice, and to use the network to reach out to people. Now, Christina and I know each other because we met up at a safeguarding event. Same with Alex. So there is a network of people out there to help, and in general, people are really nice. So.
Yeah, and I would say we now have sort of a critical mass of basic tools available. I mean, the templates, you use the templates, just start there. And you'll figure out quickly what needs to change, how you need to adapt, and so forth. But I couldn't agree more. There's often I think a reticence to delve into this area because it's a little bit overwhelming. And you're scared of making mistakes, but it's clearly one in which the risks of not acting are greater than the risks of actually getting the ball rolling, as you say, Anya, and at least being seen to be addressing the issue. The risks of shying away from it are much larger. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, of course.
And just quickly, because we were talking about case management and how each case is different and it has its sensitivities, and connecting with education, how is it important? And now Kirsty sharing the database of safeguarding officers. I want to share very quickly my experience when I was learning about safeguarding more thoroughly and case management is you ask the victim or survivor, like they prefer to be called, what is your desired outcome? Because not necessarily is the one that the federation is thinking. So I leave that like kind of thought there for our ISU members listening, for them to see how it is important to take this education and not assume that it's a straightforward path.
Thank you very much to the three of you. I think it was a very interesting panel showing a lot of different points, the need of spreading the awareness. You mentioned it, Christina, the need a bit to change the mentality. I think, Anya, you mentioned at the beginning the fact that when you launched the framework, at the beginning there was still some discussion about, is it something that we need within our sport? And then the need to adapt to the national context, to each case, of course, to the level of seriousness, and also to what the victim can expect of this process. So I think it was a very interesting panel. Thank you very much to the three of you, and I will let the floor to Becky again.
Thank you, everyone. That was a really interesting session. And it's interesting to see how many things we have in common, even though there are many things that are so different about our sports. Our next session will be focused on the perspective of ISU member federations, which we hope will be particularly interesting for the members joining us online. And our moderator will be Ingrid Beutler, who has a background in sport and a specialism, sport and law, and a specialism in safeguarding. And Ingrid, take it away.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I thank the ISU for inviting me. I commend the work that's been done, Christina, by the team and all of the ISU members. Pleasure to meet you all. We haven't actually met. So I will be introducing you and then we'll get into the questions. We have approximately 25 minutes and then hopefully we can take some questions as well from the audience and potentially online as well. So just as a brief introduction, my name is Ingrid Beutler. I'm an international lawyer working with a lot of the international federations and at the national level on safeguarding matters. So with us today, we have Jan Kavlisch, correct, from Swiss ice skating. So he's a former international speed skater, the vice president and head of the Speed and Short Track Commission at Swiss ice skating. So welcome, Jan. Have Corianne Mustad from the Dutch, so KNSB, ISU member in the Netherlands. And she's also a member of the SAYES project group. We also have another representative of the SAYES project group with Fanny. Welcome, Fanny Engel, who's working with the Hungarian Skating Federation. She's also an ISU member. So we have two representatives of the project as well as Switzerland. So I think we have quite a diverse group with us today. And I think it's interesting for all of us. We're working down the level. We've had the IF discussions, now national level, and then we'll be looking really at the athlete level. When we listen to the IOC presentation with Kirsty, we recognize all the work that's been done. They have a very structured approach. They have a lot of tools, templates available, prevention, guidance on investigations, etc. Just thinking of all the work as an ISU member, so in your country, in Switzerland, in Hungary, in the Netherlands, what do you see sort of the most challenging aspects of safeguarding for you? You know, is it the education side of things? Is it the fact that, does the trust matter of maybe receiving of reports? Is it, you know, education and communicating about the message? I'll just go from one to the other. So maybe starting here on my left, just, you know, in Switzerland, how are you dealing with things and sort of what are some of the real challenges, please?
So in Switzerland, we are in the lucky position that we have an independent entity, which was formed about 2 years ago. But the background about it is actually sad because there were severe cases in other sports, not particularly in skating sports. So these cases got a lot of public attention, and it was clear that measures need to be taken to solve these problems, which where national federations couldn't handle it themselves. So sports parliament in Switzerland decided to found Swiss Sports Integrity, which is really a great thing for us now. We must say we are really happy that we have an independent entity that takes care of all these kind of cases. They, on the one hand, take care of anti-doping cases and then also about all the ethics. So we don't have an issue to build trust because anyone can actually report to this entity and they will, I learned I shouldn't use the word investigate directly, but they will have a look into it, of course, and then take the necessary measures. So that really helps us to deal with potential cases. If there is really something going on, we as a federation get informed. We have in our federation a person that is responsible for ethics. We have defined that person, so she will report if needed to the board of Swiss Ice Skating, and then we will take more measures if needed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think Switzerland is in a very unique position. It's one of the 10 countries globally who have established a sports integrity unit that addresses all integrity matters. They call it ethics, or doping and ethics. So I think we're very privileged here in Switzerland and to benefit from that service. And now they've just recently also established a national tribunal for sport, which is quite interesting. But let's maybe move around. Let's go to another country, Hungary. So please do explain how are things functioning in Hungary and what are some of the challenges in safeguarding that you're seeing? Please, over to you, Fanny.
Thank you. Unlike Switzerland, in Hungary, unfortunately, we don't have an independent or national safe sport entity yet. We do hope it will be established in the near future because it would make things really much easier and helpful for the federations within our country. And as a first step, I think I would say that all of these aspects can be challenging in safeguarding. So, building trust with the athletes, staff members, making sure they understand the concepts of safeguarding and the boundaries and issues they would need to report should any problems occur. Since it is also a delicate matter, it is essential that we approach it with the necessary care and tone, which can be also challenging sometimes because we also need to make sure that we are not tiptoeing around the question, because that can also make it much more difficult for the athletes to open up. But still, we shouldn't act like, trailblazers and give them the necessary space and feeling of safety where they know they can turn to us if they have a problem. And also it is important and necessary to acknowledge that abuse and harm can also happen in skating sports. Luckily, or I'm not sure if it's luck or not, but we haven't had many cases yet. We will see if it's a good thing or a bad, but really it's important to realize that anything can happen since every member of the skating community, skaters, staff members, they are all there to reach their top potential and to achieve everything that's possible from a human perspective, but we need to make sure they do not cross certain lines while doing that and provide them with a safe environment where they can achieve these their goals, so to say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fanny, for that introductory remarks. So on to Netherlands. So please do explain, and maybe just also if you can refer to some of the things you're doing as well in safeguarding, if there's policies in place or different education and things like that. Thank you.
Yes, for us as KNSB, it is very important that we keep the subject safeguarding high on our agenda. Because we have organized our policies and regulations in our organization. We also have a safe sports entity in the Netherlands. But for us, it's important that we do not feel safe by have our work done on papers, but that we really have to work on awareness, that we keep our eye on bringing awareness and keep the conversations with our coaches and athletes, and that we should continue this dialogue. and that we shouldn't stop our work by having our formal procedures. And that is one thing we have learned in this project very well. So for us, it's important that we know what our clubs needed, so that we can, as KNSB, that we can contribute very well to our clubs. And also that we have to realize that we have to stay in contact with our youth. So how are they communicating with each other? How can we reach them? And how can we talk about safeguarding with our youth, so that our projects and our communication reach them?
Okay, thank you. Do you, just a question, and it's to all of you, do any of you have a policy on online, like cyber communication in safeguarding? Like how, for example, skaters should be responding to online abuse, for example, or to deal with it online? Has anyone got a specific policy? Maybe.
I can explain something about what we do in the Netherlands with our coaches and skaters about this. We before the season starts, we have a briefing about safeguarding, and also the coaches, they need to have a certificate of good conduct, and they have to sign or they have to agree with the KNSB Code of Conduct. This means also for the skaters who competing in junior and senior competitions, national, international, they have to agree with the Code of Conduct from the KNSB, so that they are commit with the rules about online abuse and that kind of things.
It's often very, one of the big challenges we have in these cases is the vetting, the due diligence, making sure that the coaches, the people, the managers, the people working with often our children and youth are good people. It's and it's not something that's in all countries. So you mentioned you conduct some sort of a due diligence, a vetting process. I wonder in Switzerland, do you check, or in Hungary?
I would say it's pretty similar to what's going on in Holland. We certainly also have our employees sign code of conduct, code of ethics. It should be known by all our members, clubs, skaters. And this is maybe one of the biggest challenges for us. It's to really make sure also on club level, people know, at least they know about the code of conduct. That's one step, and then they should know what's in there and really follow. But there again, the big pro in Switzerland is that we have a big network with our National Olympic Committee providing advice, guidance. So people should be aware if something happens, they should know where to go, where to report. And if they do not know, easiest is always in Switzerland, go to Swiss Sports Integrity. They will lead you through the process. Maybe just the downside of it all is as soon as you have an entity like that, it opens kind of the box to some people. I mean, it's really, really important to have that. But then they realized quickly there were so many reported cases that they had not sufficient people to deal with all this. So, and that's actually sad for the real cases. So, because it takes longer time, and if you're involved in a severe case and it just takes forever, that's hard for everyone. For the victim, for the accused offender, maybe incorrectly accused. So that's the downside, but here they're making progress, but that's some stuff we are dealing with too.
Thank you, sir. Hungary, please.
So joining the Swiss and Dutch models, we also operate with the Code of Ethics regulations on safeguarding ethics and conduct. And every club who applies to become member of our federation needs to agree with these regulations. This is a prerequisite or a minimum requirement to be accepted as a club into our federation. So that's one of the things. Answering your first question, we haven't had a specific section for online abuse or cyberbullying, but this conference also and the presentation on Athlete 365 really highlighted that it is also necessary and needs to be looked at in 2024 as well. Other than that, and the codes, we are working on a new education strategy for our coaches, where a new license system would be introduced with clearer requirements and higher, let's say, educational standards, where safeguarding module is also compulsory to complete. That's one of the plans in the making, and luckily, or it's really a good progress in the country. Recently, there has been a legal change, national legal change, whereas since June or July 2024, every coach or staff member who are working with athletes under 18 has to undergo a safeguarding training or workshop and update their knowledge annually to make sure they have the latest information and they comply with the safeguarding measure. And they can also learn more about communicating with skaters and their parents. So that's a really good thing. And the Hungarian Hungarian University of Sports Science and the Society of Coaches are also involved in these projects, along with the Olympic Committee at times. So they organize these briefings as well, which we always encourage for our coaches or members to attend. And we would also like to be more active in these fields as well.
Wonderful. It's so encouraging. I think that's why we love these sorts of opportunities to share and to learn. You know, it is a learning, it's a journey as well. Nobody's perfect in this space. It is so complex. I've been working in the integrity space in sport for nearly 20 years now. Corruption, then you walk about match fixing, and now abuse, but these are the most complex crime types, the most destructive. They're so hard to investigate. So encouraging stories where you've got almost a government initiative to upskill everybody, where training is compulsory on safeguarding matters. I mean, that's a sort of a minimum standard that we'd like to see reflected in all sports. So that's really encouraging news for all of us, I think. Just on education. So thinking of methods of education, as we work across various sports, there's various types and methods of education that are done. Are there sort of, you can share some experience and background on how you educate, be it the coaches, be it if you're clubs, be it down to the skater level, on safeguarding topics, how you do it practically? You know, is it e-learnings more? Thinking of languages as a challenge, particularly thinking Switzerland here, we have 4 official languages. Sort of, or is it briefings before events? Is it the coaches who actually have a role in educating? So just maybe if you can share some experience. You can start, Fanny. Here's the microphone.
So in addition to these outer trainings or briefings that are organized by these entities I mentioned, we organized a conference similarly to this one last year, which was one of our milestones regarding our safeguarding journey, because before this SAYES project, we pretty much started from scratch. So this was a really nice and useful thing to organize a whole event on safeguarding, where we invited several leading civil organizations from our country along with the SAYES partners. And this was focused on mostly coaches, and many coaches of our scene attended this conference, and it was also mandatory for those future coaches who are learning at the university at the time. And other than that, we would like to organize several workshops each year or season and do online briefings as well as time goes on. But unfortunately, this is also a step-by-step progress, so there is always room for improvement for us as well. And we would also like to include and put out these posters for skaters as well, you know, to show them where they can find information on safeguarding and their opportunities. And we would like to, we are working on updating our website where a separate section would be dedicated to safeguarding. And then we would like to create there a hub of information for all skating communities and then share the latest training opportunities or these briefings on our online sections as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Either of you.
We try to make sure that every official touch point we have with our clubs, be it officials, coaches, skaters, ethics will be a topic, be it short, just to show code of conduct again, or really do case studies. That's certainly something we do. And before Swiss Sports Integrity actually was founded, in our figure skating branch, there is an initiative about 3 years ago called Strong Body and Mind, where the junior team members are asked, well, not just asked, they have to do online meetings, 9 in total, where there are different topics discussed, from nutrition, about social media, mental health and everything. And we have always experts, be it a doctor, a nutritionist, social media expert, to actually talk to the juniors. They will have discussions. And yeah, as you said, we have it in 2 languages, French and German. So simultaneously, it always involves quite a lot of people. And the plan is also to actually extend it now to the speed skating branch, so that we really educate the skaters. And when it comes to the coaches, our educational system for all the sports in Switzerland is called Youth in Sports. And since I think 2 years or 1.5 years, it's also their mandatory part to talk about ethics. So we can actually ensure that coaches that go through the education have some background at least. The only problem is, like, we cannot force the clubs to actually hire these kind of coaches. They are free to hire anyone in the end. But the other thing is, like, if they do the coaches educations, they get money. So money is always a good argument, right?
Thank you, Netherlands. Just on education, just basically methods of education that are potentially used.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought about it. About the coaches, they should have a code of conduct, certificate of good conduct, and that we do the briefings before the season. But the coaches, we also have e-learning modules for coaches about safeguarding. These are for beginning coaches, but also for the more experienced coaches. Also, our Center of Safe Sports has different kind of modules, which can be followed by our coaches. And they can earn some points for the training license. So that's very interesting for our trainers and coaches. Maybe it's interesting to share also related to our clubs. As from the 1st of January 2025, we will have 4 basic requirements for the clubs to introduce there. The first is that we ask the clubs to have a trusted person to where everyone can go to, and that the person is the person where people can go if something happened, but also that coaches and trainers should be educated. And the third is the code of conduct, and the fourth was the certificate of conduct. So every coach and trainer should have a certificate of conduct in the club. As KNSB, we help our clubs to organize this by online webinars, but also we have different sessions in the country to tell about this.
Okay, and just a question on the certificates, that's something that's renewed annually on an annual basis, like education of coaches has to be on a continual basis, or you do it once and then you're in the system?
Once in 3 years.
Once in 3 years, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So every trainer or coach should have a personal certificate of conduct.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, but very interesting on having a trusted person.
Yes.
So anyone can go to them, that trusted person within a club for any safeguarding or ethical concern. Is it broader? like if you have bad conduct on, I don't know, corruption, for example, you could also go to that person, or it's purely on behavioral, like interpersonal violence, so safeguarding issues.
Yeah, especially for safeguarding.
Especially for safeguarding. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
You as ISU, like as members, you're at the federation level. What contact do you have directly with the skaters? Do you more work through your clubs? Or do you go in and do briefings, for example, for skaters at certain events?
Yeah, most of our skaters are member of the clubs.
Right.
So we reach the clubs, and the clubs, they contact the skaters unless they are national or international skaters.
Right. Okay, and it's the same, I guess, for all of you. Then back to the ISU, and thinking we're in a pyramid society within sport, IOC, and then we have the IFs and your national federations. Have you been using the ISU content and things, and what further support, this is more, further support could you envisage from ISU in safeguarding? Is it financial support? Is it templates? Is it on investigations, education? Just maybe that will be sort of a last point. I've been given the time just to share sort of some last thoughts on ISU support and some final concluding remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, we are very happy with the ISU safeguarding funding for this year, and we will use it especially for bringing awareness, for education to our trainers and coaches,
Yes.
because it is very important that we continue this work, and also to implement and communicate the SAYES e-learning.
Oh, wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Please.
We are also very happy the ISU is continuously supporting safeguarding, and the financial contribution will also help us in making an appointment for a safeguarding officer for long term, hopefully, because we haven't found our person yet. That's in progress, but this will also help the process. And as being in contact with all of the federations, you get to see different policies, different practices. So it's always nice to gain insight into other federations' best practices and having a guidance on already worked out solutions, and that can also help us finding the right way for case management and to have a clear reporting system. And we also checked the ISU's content for this. They have a really good reporting format, so that we translated it into Hungarian, and it will also be posted online once everything's finalized. And also the new code of ethics and safeguarding policy helped us in updating our codes as well.
Oh, wonderful. So encouraging. Switzerland, to conclude.
Yes. I think the tools provided by the ISU are really beneficial. We share with our members, with skaters, go through it, and I think beneficial for me really is also this kind of exchange, and also the ISU organizing a conference like this, giving the topic the importance or underlining the importance of that topic is really valuable. And I think the topic deserves really the stage, and all this needs to be addressed. So really thanks for having us too, and I really enjoyed the exchange with the colleagues.
Thank you. So yeah, on behalf of everybody, we thank you as well, panelists. It's fascinating, and congratulations on all the work that you're doing, and continue the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. It's really interesting to hear how you've got different approaches, but along the same basic lines. And I like the idea of incentivizing the coaches to do their education by various means. Now it's a coffee break, so we're going to have a quick 15 minutes from 4 o'clock till 4:15, and then we'll be back for the second half. Thank you. Pass on. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your coffee. We're now going to move on to talk about another resource for national federations and for international federations, which is non-governmental organisations or NGOs that deal with child protection in their countries and regions. First of all, we're going to hear from Philippe Lyotard from the University of Lyon 1 in France, and from Simon Latournière, who's Deputy Director General of an NGO in France called Colosse aux pieds d'argile, which is translated into English as Colossus with feet of clay. And they both have experience in this area from each perspective, from one side and the other. So I hand over to Philippe.
Thank you, Becky. I just take the, no, it's okay for the microphone. I got it, yeah. So I would like to present something very quickly. I think 5 minutes will be enough, and then Simon will speak for Colosse aux pieds d'argile, which is one of the NGO we can use in France. So the question for me was, how can sports organizations can find, interact, and build relations with safeguarding related NGOs in their country? Today, safeguarding is no longer a peripheral concern. It's a central pillar of ethical and effective sports management. So sports organizations have to foster safe environments for athletes, fans, staff, and partnering with safeguarding-based or related NGOs is the key to achieving this goal. But how can this be done? So I will present 3 clear steps and proposals to work together with sports organizations and specific NGOs. Step 1 is finding the right NGOs. When you start to work on those topics, you can find a lot of NGOs involved, but not specifically in sports. But there's a lot in society working on gender-based violence, sexual harassment, bullying, and so on. So the question is, the journey begins with the fact that you have to identify, you have to identify the good organizations, which are the ones who share your values. Okay? And the one who also answer to your own questions. However, this journey doesn't start with this search. The journey starts upstream with the creation of a preventive action plan by the sport organization itself. This plan will define the place and the mission of the NGOs within the organization. And it is crafted by an internal team composed of specifically trained staff. Without this internal team, it's very difficult to look for partners outside. Another step is to research national and local NGOs, focusing on different topics. You can have, for example, NGOs working on child protection, working on gender-based violence, mental health, anti-abuse initiatives, and so on, but also on diversity, non-discrimination, and equality and inclusion. Where you can find those NGOs, today there are a lot of platforms, for example, government directories. You can have toolkits, a lot of online toolkits present also resources, NGO resources. On LinkedIn, you can find kind of professional networks on those questions. And you can also attend as a team, as a professional people involved in gender-based violence. You can also attend seminars, webinars, and conferences where safeguarding experts often speak. The second step is to initiating interaction. Once you've identified the NGOs which interest you, the next step is to initiate meaningful exchanges by many ways. For example, just contact them. My experience give me very often you can contact NGOs on the internet, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and so on. And they are quite reactive. They react quite fastly because we've got a common project, in fact, a common interest. But at the same time, there's not only one NGO. You have to diversify your partnership. Diversify your partnership because the different NGOs work on specific things. For example, you can contact someone who is very, has got a lot of competencies and experience on sexual harassment or child protecting or discriminations. And each of them can help you to reach one of your goals. On the other way, what is interesting, it's not just to contact NGOs and ask them to propose something, but it's to work together and to refine requests. Joint work can help to refine your own requests. And once you've defined your own request, you can ask to the NGO to adjust its own action to your request. And it's very important. I presented some, I precise it a bit later. The third one, is to build a long-term relationships, which is always better because you can learn from each other. And to do that, if you've got a preventive action plan, it's better because partnerships thrive on trust and consistent engagement. And you can also, when you work on your action plan, preventing action plan, you can work together with the NGOs and include them in decision-making process and create a formalized partnership like, using memorandums of understanding, which is most known as MOU. You can also create regularly updates of the progress of the safeguarding action. And last thing, it's to co-host different actions, for example, training sessions, awareness campaign, and so on. And maybe the last things I'd like to say yes, it's to remember two things. The first thing, it's the more trained and competent the safeguarding staff of the sports organization is, the more effective the collaboration with NGO will be. And the second thing to remember is the best NGO is the one you can work with and not the one which sells you its own catalog.
Okay, I will continue. Thank you, Philippe. And sorry by advance for my French Southwest English. We'll continue with focus on the point of view of Colosse Opé d'Argile, French NGO, which works with OT, French National Federation. So federation and NGO are not common interest, in fact, but step by step, we can find common interests such as the desire to protect and the sense of social performance, safe sport, its excellence. For a federation, priority is to achieve major sporting goals, to win medals, but sometimes get more than sporting results. That's true if you let the choice, federations choose medals and control testimonies. And in second hand, there is the obligation imposed on the federation by the authorities, by government, to be better. It's a sort of virtuous, coercive control. So 4 years ago, in France, for example, the obligations are growing and the federations almost no longer have a choice. If federations don't have choice, they don't have competencies for this. Skills are technical, there is this is a complex subject, and it's a singular job to support victims, especially in the sport environment, about relationship with other participants, coaches, the intimacy of the body, feeling of virility, and with pain of even violence. So, inside federations, lead a network, manages a captive audience, has power over its local organizations and its members, but have not skills in the fight against violence. What think about International Federation, National Olympic Committee? International Olympic Committee, it's active, has an important place to disseminate safeguarding policies. Maybe it could be a guide for sport movement around the world if it continues. And on the other side, we have NGOs who release on a network of professionals and local partners, mobilize professionals, experts, trainers, works with authorities, government, in many cases, ministries, and has the necessary skills to prevent, listen, support the safeguarding federation and its members. As you understand, federation and NGOs have every chance to work well together with mutual trust and no interference, because they are complementary. NGOs are working for union, synergy, federation. Do you want to unconditionally? Maybe.
Merci. Thank you very much, both of you. It's interesting to see the 2 points of view and to see that organizations and NGOs can work together in complementary ways, sharing their skills and their experience to work towards a common goal. I just wanted to show you this, what's on the screen right now, because at the end of our e-learning, which we're going to talk about next, there is a link to this website, which brings together contact details of hundreds of child helplines agencies around the world. And they're not obviously all sports related, but I think it's a really useful website in many, many languages and literally covering the whole world. And it can be a good resource for athletes directly and for our member federations and other organizations. So just to let you know that exists. Okay, Simon is going to stay with us now, and Christina's going to come back and join us. And they're going to talk about the e-learning module that was developed as part of the SAYES project and show you a bit of how it works and how it can be used.
I need that where do I need this computer, no? Simon and I are going to talk about the SAYES e-learning module. We left the best for last to keep you here. So the grassroots level presentation, skater, coach, and parent, and the e-learning module. So very quickly, what we did, the general objective that already Cyril went over. So I'm not going to stop a lot here because also we're minding time. But we are right now already in objective 3, developing and sharing the e-learning module. So we will work right now, all of us together, and then we will tell you where we will publish it. This was a thorough collaborative effort. I think it was a very nice effort between the partners and ISU, all of us, because it involved many brainstorming discussion sessions between us, different perspectives, different cultural contexts, people coming from academia, NGO, IFs, NFs. So how to choose the appropriate language precisely for people from 12 years old to 16 years old. So how much is too much? but still they have to get the idea and have the awareness of sexual harassment and violence. Age-relatable scenarios, so we have some scenarios that include social media. Of course, you will be able to visit the e-learning course later, because right now we will be able to go through one or two scenarios. And as I mentioned, the different perspectives. The target audience 12 to 16. Situations that young people understand. So again, a bit of social media, peer pressure, coaches, all that was a lot of discussions between us and the experience of NFs also regarding skaters. It's an engaging format, you will see, with 2D characters and a voiceover. It's a robotic voiceover that all of us were like, we don't really like it, but having a real voice was much more expensive. So we did our best with the funding. And it's a mini game format. So it's 8 scenarios. We propose to start with Lily because it has like a nice sequence, but today we're not going to start with Lily because you already know about sexual harassment and all that. And the situations, more or less, you can see it in the corner. What to do if a person makes you feel uncomfortable? How can I help my friend that just reported something to me? Who can I ask for advice? What are the rules about this? Is there a specific rule regarding, for example, lifts between a coach and a skater in a code of conduct? We're actually going to use that scenario. So we advise it to be used, of course, individually, but first, and it depends on the age, because maybe if it's a 12-year-old, it's better to do it in a group learning setting with the clubs or the federations or in training camps. So the coaches and or the entourage can lead these scenarios, this course, or by parents of the skaters, they can do it together at home. But we do think it's important to have an adult kind of explaining the situations and the words, and if they have any question of what does that imply. So after all the scenarios are followed by questions, so it's a mini game, so they test their knowledge and definitions of what is harassment or what is exhibitionism or what is consent. Their rights and the legal situation of regarding minors and sexual harassment, for example, and how can young skaters respond or ask for help. And already Becky shared one very important resource. And now Simon, help me with this presentation.
My mic. Thank you. So I will to do again a focus on an experience. E-learning was created to raise awareness for young people, you say that, and it's also perfectly suited for coaches, for supervisor. Also on August 31, we finally raised the session for supervisor and coaches in French skating organization. We mobilized a trainer from Colos, au Pied d'Argile, to lead the session. We used the e-learning support all the session long for 2 hours. And first, viewing e-learning module together to immerse themselves in concrete real-life situations, because to success on an effective awareness, we must present a real story, real situation, and illustration with a true story come from 6,000 testimonies received by Colos au Pied d'Argile. From there, the Colos trainer created a space for exchange between professionals, as can be done between young or minors. We have explained what is forbidden, what the law says, what consent is, the consequences of violence. Everyone has able to learn and understand the best practice to do and to follow, and developed their critical thinking. Is very important, this thing. Moreover, the e-learning module, because it's very easy to use. very easy to use for parents, for coaches, everybody, and can now used by coaches themselves and to lead prevention session for young people in their club. We show that the consortium is working to write instruction to guarantee the training of people who will use the e-learning tools. And that's right, e-learning module is even more positive and efficacious and effective if it's used face-to-face with people. In-person session, if a teen or an adult is in pain or needs help, trainers who are trained for it can provide immediate assistance to listen to victims and know how to act. Second reason, in-person setting can foster more dynamic and discussions and active participation. Trainer can see attitude changes and non-verbal. He appears as a trusted adult. To conclude, to raise awareness with minors, it's necessary to favor face-to-face and rigorously prepare trainers.
So not to, well, just a bit how it should be used. Simone already said that part, but just for the national federations or maybe clubs listening to us right now, just remember to provide resources in your own country. And whoever is going to deliver this training, that they research in advance how to deliver an age-appropriate response, because it can be a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old or maybe even younger. So in our case, it will be published in our ISU Rink, where we publish all our e-learning courses, including the ones that I mentioned before. And for our partners, I guess everybody, let's say at office or work, can see the links there. For the French, the Dutch, and the Hungarian website, you can also will find the e-learning there. It's not yet there for us because we're announcing it today. Yeah, do you have something more to say about the pilot module in France or the results data?
No, not. But you said just before that we have an electronic module with a cartoon, with voice who are not very real, and maybe the step after that is something like immersive learning, reality, virtual reality, with in immersive learning with real voice, real situation, to be better and more effective for trainers. Maybe it was maybe a new step for us.
So far, what we created all together, with consensus of wording and all that, it's showing here, but it's not showing there. Share. Here we go directly. Great. Well, sorry we couldn't provide the microphones for all of you. I mean, headphones. So it's a bit the kind of the situations that we wanted to cover in the e-learning. We even discussed about if we could skip that part, but we decided not, so they would be forced to see it. So now we can move on. And Let's see.
Violence. And I don't know if I can confide in my coach.
I stopped skating because the other skaters were too mean.
Someone from my club writes me messages almost every day and is always asking questions about my private life.
Oh, okay, perfect. Are the people? So, Idol, all of us.
We're going to do this together.
Protect yourself and your friends if necessary. At the end of each story, win a badge and
So we're because I want all of them to hear the presentation, and then we have you know. Well. Okay, so let's do this very quickly together. We might only have a chance to go through two maybe, but but you couldn't listen to the audio, so well, this is a text conversation, the whole text, and what we did was divided all the lines. So what we want you or the young skater to do is detect which parts of the text are or might become problematic. And also, if all of us answer wrong, it's even better, because we can then show the feedback and show how to explain this to the skaters. So it's not really a test. It's a workshop. So hi, Clara. Oh. Hi, Clara. No. Okay. You're almost ready for the competition? Yeah, okay. Keep up the good work. Okay. The new t-shirt suits you? Exactly, more or less. It makes your breasts look great. Okay, we all agree. So we are not sure about the new t-shirt looks great on you, but let's see. So it says good choice. Why? Because it's now the first message. So that can be a polite, the new t-shirt looks good on you, and that's it, right? But then if this starts happening with more and more and more messages, it becomes problematic. So well, actually, you don't need to listen to this because it's just music. You can see.
Okay. So now
we put it in the different lines, or we break them down. Are we okay with this one? Yeah. I really like you. Are we okay with this one? If it would, no. So let's select it. I saw you were embarrassed when I complimented you early. We're not convinced. Let's leave it there to see what's the feedback. See you on Thursday. Are we okay with this one? Okay. Have a nice evening. We're okay. Hugs and kisses? No. Okay, let's see the feedback. Not quite. So let's try again. Oh, yeah, okay. So we chose this. Do you have any proposal of which one other could be or become problematic? Yes, because it's kind of like already shaming, like it's grooming actually to prepare the person to say, it's cool to compliment, what's the issue? So then we can start seeing how the build-up is problematic, because we don't have a lot of time, maybe, oh, yeah, we did this on purpose. You cannot jump forward because they need to do all of this. But maybe we have time for one more of these scenario, and then we jump to another scenario. No? Are we okay with this one? No. So we selected because it's the ones that are wrong. Are we okay with this one? No. Because even he or she goes and puts a heart emoji just if it was not enough. So good choices. This time we didn't get feedback. But if we get feedback as an adult, with the feedback that it's like your guide and your experience, you can explain why a bit this can become problematic. So I think you get the idea of this scenario. We're going to try to exit. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go ahead and here. Oh, good. So we said, should we choose?
But we will not have the gold medal.
No,
we don't finish.
We won't have they receive obviously a little badge, but you will not receive it because you're adults and you can go to the doctor without receiving candy at the end. Oh, but. Do the boys have the right to take pictures of somebody in the shower? Okay, obviously not. I mean, it's obvious for us, but this we're talking about young people, right? So it gives the definition of what the situation is. Secretly watching others at intimate moments. And would the boys have the right to walk completely naked into the girls' changing room? No. We know that this is called exhibitionism. So you can explain a bit what exhibition is and voyeurism and exhibitionism. If it's legally appropriate in your country, you can say that it's actually a crime. But yeah, that's true. It's true. It's true. So what constitutes exhibitionism? So a bit of additional information. And this was a short scenario that we choose on purpose because of that. It's relevant for maybe IFs and NFs because of the policies that we have to put for safeguarding during events. So policies on changing rooms and sharing rooms.
We don't have.
No, we don't have more time. So, but you can do this on your own and with your skaters. Thank you very much.
So that was a quick idea of what the e-learning is based on, and obviously that once it's on the website and available to everyone, you'll be able to in the national federations go through it, see how it's appropriate for use with your athletes within your federation, within your clubs, and how best you want to use it. And we really hope that it will be a useful resource for you. And as mentioned, it's also going to be available in French. I know we have several ISU members that are French speaking, not so many Hungarian and Dutch, but nevertheless. Okay, so last and definitely not least, we wanted to highlight the viewpoints of the people who are the most affected by safeguarding. That's the skaters, their parents, and the coaches in their clubs and the ice skating rinks. And all of our efforts, our international and national policies are aimed at protecting them and helping them. So it's essential their voices are heard, and they should contribute to all of these conversations. So I'm really pleased to invite Ingrid to come back to moderate this session with a representative on behalf of coaches, skaters, and parents of skaters. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, everyone. Welcome to our final panelists, the three of you. We've gone from the international level, IOC level, and now we're right at the grassroots, the national level. So here with us today, we have on our left, we have Natalie Lindqvist from Sweden. So Natalie has been a singles and a synchronized skater. She's 9-time World Championship participant, winning gold in 2012 and silver in 2018 with Team Sweden. So welcome, Natalie. She's also a member of the ISU Athletes Commission from 2016 to 2019, and she's just recently been re-elected in 2022. It's wonderful to have you with us. We also have next to Natalie, we have Cédric Pernet. So Cédric is French, but based here in Switzerland. He was an international ice dancer at the junior and senior levels, representing France, and is now a coach in Switzerland, national ice dance coach for the Swiss Ice Skating Federation. He's a technical specialist for ice dance. So welcome, Cédric. It's wonderful to have you with us. And finally, we have Lucy. We've already heard of Lucy, also a specialist in governance and safeguarding matters. But not only that, Lucy is also a mother of a daughter who's a member of the Swiss Ice Skating's Cadre Régional, so the regional level, and skates in the advanced novice category. So she's speaking today particularly from the parent's perspective. We're going to take a little bit more sort of an informal approach to this final roundtable, that everyone can feel free to really talk about how things are at the national level, maybe even from your own experience as athletes as well as skaters. I just want to start with a sort of a more general question to you all, and we can pass the microphone around. In your view, we've heard this afternoon so much about safeguarding, but do you think, in your view, most of the skaters that you work with aware of safeguarding issues? Do they know what we're talking about? Do they know what the rules are or the policies, and do they know where to report? So maybe I'll just, whoever would like to start, the microphone's there. Go for it, Cédric, please.
Thank you. Just for me, it depends the level of the skaters. For example, if the athletes are part of regional regional teams or national teams, there is a lot of communication from the federation towards these athletes. So I think they are mostly aware of the rules and the process of safeguarding. Now, I think it's maybe a little bit more doubt about the other skaters, more recreational skaters, or not yet part of a team. And yeah, I think maybe it's more questionable about this category of skaters.
Thank you. So you feel at the sort of the higher level, regional, national level, there's awareness, but not necessarily when you get down to
yeah, I have
amateur,
more doubt about this
recreational.
category.
Yeah, of course. Would the others like to share, please, Natalie?
I can only agree, and I think most of us is aware about safeguarding today, but I also think that we have a work to do, and maybe that's why we are gathered here today and speak about this. So I still we can improve more, and younger people can be more aware. Like you said, it depends on the different level that we have. We have also seen this today that there are many tools that we can use, but we need to use them. So not that we have all these policies and we have the structure and we have everything, but we need to use them. And that's something I think the skaters can be more aware of.
Right. Sorry, I'll follow up with a question to you, Natalie. So in Sweden, for example, when you were skating, for example, did you receive like education on this topic? And was it presented as a safeguarding, or it's more something given the recent work of ISU in the last, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, when I was in Sweden and competed, I was a part of the national team. So then you have to do it, and you have this code of ethics and things. So, but I think we can do more in our country.
Thank you. Lucy, the Swiss experience as a mother.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the pyramid of sport, and we've mentioned here that there's quite a lot of work that goes on, I think definitely at the national level. And then as you move down the pyramid, it is less and less. And clearly there are resourcing challenges, communication challenges, but we all know that we have to get that message out to all of the communities. Sometimes I feel it gives a message that some people have more right to be safeguarded than others, and I think we need to be careful about that possible interpretation. Everybody needs to be safeguarded, and that's the athletes, but it's also everybody involved in the sport. So I think that I think that skaters, certainly in my circles, they're aware of safeguarding matters, but I think it's often often because what we see in the headlines and the media, it's more the sexual violence that people are aware of, and understandably and rightly so. But I think there's less awareness about psychological violence and what that looks like, and that certain practices do actually constitute psychological violence. And I think there needs to be a lot more awareness raising around that. Both in the skaters community, but and the surrounding entourage, parents community as well. And on your point about the where to report, I think particularly in Switzerland, I think Swiss Sport Integrity and Swiss Olympic have done some fantastic work in promoting the existence of Swiss sport integrity and this reporting mechanism. Afterwards, I think that Jan referred to some of the challenges that Swiss Sport Integrity has in terms of the volumes and the types of queries they're getting coming through. So there maybe needs to be some tweaking there. But I think people know where to report. I think afterwards it's how to report, sorry. But I think afterwards it's, all those barriers to reporting. Are they actually going to use it? And who's using it? Are the people who really need to use it using that system? Because there are so many barriers for athletes who are actually active to report.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a really interesting point. I was at a conference last week with the Swiss Lawyers Association, Sport Lawyers Association, and there was a presentation on the number of cases that the Swiss Sports Integrity unit has received, and it's something like 440 were received this year, so 2024, and the majority of them are ethics. So it's no longer doping. Historically, there would be more of a reporting on doping-related cases, and now it's the safeguarding is just exploding. So therefore, the resource capacity. And another experience on the US Center for Safe Sport, for example, they opened their doors and they actually had to close for a period. The number of cases can overwhelm. So it's linked to the culture at the grassroots level and sort of how to educate about what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. We've just seen the e-learning that's been developed by ISU. And just wondering, in your experience as coach, as athletes, as parents, what are your different roles in the different positions that you have in educating and informing and ensuring a positive culture and understanding of what is acceptable conduct and unacceptable conduct? Just what, how do you see your different, what's the most effective way actually to get those messages across? I think it's e-learnings, briefing, so a little bit linked to our previous panel, that is question to the federations, but maybe on as an athlete and coach and parent. Thank you.
I will say that I haven't seen this before that Christina showed us, but I think that's an excellent example. I think we should use like role playing. Then we can see and have like real life example and see, okay, what is unacceptable behavior, sorry, and acceptable behavior, and see so the young skaters can relate to what is wrong and what is right. So have role playing and show us.
Nice idea, Cedric.
I agree completely about for the athletes and directed for the athletes. Now for the coaches, Swiss Olympic developed a wonderful tool, which is ethical compass, which helps a lot to determine where is each behavior with a color, if it's a green or gray or orange, and for many different action and many different pillars like power, ideals, proximity, and pressure. And I think this is a wonderful tool to objective behavior of any actor of sport.
Thank you for sharing. No idea. Anybody else in the room is aware of Swiss Olympics? You are? Compass? Okay, so the Swiss are. That's good.
This is really new. This start beginning of the year 24.
So it's basically, it's an ethical compass. It's like
ethical
where
compass,
you're,
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is amazing because we see like the cultural change, what is acceptable behavior in one sport might be quite different in another. And culturally, we're so determined by where we grew up. For example, I'm from New Zealand, corruption, 0. It's like you do not. But in other cultures, gift giving is a normal part of the culture. So is it incorrect? Is it ethically correct? And in our sport, for our children and our youth and athletes and skaters, what is acceptable types of behavior, particularly on the psychological side of things, like the culture of, is it bullying? How harsh can you be on your athletes? And there's a big difference amongst our nations globally. Maybe on other effective ways. Have you, Lucy, maybe come? Oh no, Cedric, you wanted to add something? No,
no,
it's okay. Lucy, just in ways that you see are effective ways of teaching, like young athletes, thinking of your daughter and your experience now of passing as to what is appropriate behavior.
Well, my daughter's had it quite drilled into her. So
she's
mother. But I think, if I think about the parent's role towards their child who's an athlete, clearly the child's a minor, clearly the parent needs to be involved to a certain extent in their participation in sport, to a big extent. The parent is pivotal in the overall well-being and the fulfillment of the child in sport. I think the parent has a role to be checking in with their child all the time, regularly. Asking about training sessions, how they went. They should be showing an interest. They should be asking. They should be just keeping an eye on the behavior of the child. Just keep an eye on any sort of changed patterns of behavior. Be observant. Be present for them. Have conversations. Obviously, don't make it the topic of conversation day in, day out. But it's so important to keep that communication line open and to just observe them, see their reaction to things. And it's very easy to pick up on things if you're sort of keeping an eye and not always asking them, but just watching how they're reacting to certain situations. And then, obviously the parent's got a role to react as well. And to have the conversations with the club, with the coaches as necessary. In terms of the education of the parents, I mean, you talked about effective education of kids. I mean, I was talking from my role as a parent. I think all the points that you've put up there, I love the e-learning that you've presented there. I think that's excellent. And the accompaniment of a parent, that's, if it's a joint learning process, that's great. And all with the coaches, the athlete with the coaches. It can be in a group environment. I do think the role playing, depending on the ages, I think, like you said, using the language that's appropriate, adapted, and that they can relate to, and situations that they can relate to. It might be about peer-on-peer issues in the changing rooms and some kind of bullying or intimidation that's going on. And, that can happen as young as 8, 9 years old, or even younger in some cases. But you can have those conversations and you can get kids using their language to imagine the situation and how they might feel. So, yeah, role-playing, definitely.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is there any experience from Switzerland or from Sweden with regards to actually educating of the parents? Do you engage at all? Does the federation or the clubs that you work with engage at all with parents, or do rather the children turn up for training and the parents are there, but you don't necessarily speak or engage with them? I just wonder if there's any experience on the parent side of things.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, okay.
But I think there is some education for the parents because everyone is involved.
Yeah, okay.
Officials, staff, everyone has their responsibility. I have as a skater responsibility,
Yes.
the coaches, the parents, the staff, everyone. So everyone needs the education, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Question for you, sort of, Cedric. Do you integrate like safeguarding into your training? You're a coach, you're working with the young skaters every day. How do you integrate safeguarding messages or learnings into your day-to-day job? Do you?
Yeah, of course, this is finally the most important thing. All the time the compromise of to find the performance, but with the wellness of the athletes. So the communication, regular communication, and to ask some question about the moods and how do you feel, and to better know your athletes. So for me, it's a constant mindset. Yeah.
So it's part of your day-to-day job. You're checking in on how they feel, their well-being is part of your job.
Exactly.
Okay. Something goes wrong. You see, for example, another coach who's yelling at a skater and has been doing it systematically, and there is an issue with that, your coach. What would you do about that? Who would you report to? And then it will be a question then for all of you, so you can maybe prepare. Do you think of collaborating with, other NGOs? We've heard of Colos. Today there's a lot of, in France, it's very, very well established, the collaboration with external partners. And here in Switzerland and within sport in general, it's a new area that we're working in. Typically, sport has been very autonomous and looked after its own affairs, and now we cannot be experts in mental health and psychological support and legal aid and everything. We're having to rely on external partners who are often from civil society. So just wondering if here in Switzerland and then maybe in Sweden, you would collaborate with other partners and what you'd do if you see one of your colleagues, I'd say, misbehaving.
Yes, in the first step, I will analyze the situation and I will use the tool as I said before, because it's an important tool and you have to be sure and really confident of your analysis on this situation. And after that, we are lucky in Switzerland, as Jan Kaffisch mentioned, about the Swiss sport integrity. And there is the process is really clear, and it's an easy way to declare that. So we can feel confident about that.
It's reassuring. The simplicity of the process as well. You
exactly,
know where to report.
Completely.
And clear procedures. That's excellent. Okay. Do you have any collaboration or are aware of any collaboration with civil society, like organizations that work in mental health or psychological support or different things? Maybe not.
Not directly,
with
but
skating.
a lot from the federation as the program Strong Body and Mind, and a lot of communication from the head of performance about this the theme, this topic.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm conscious that time is up. Just maybe some final thoughts, in your different roles as well, that you would like to share as we conclude. Lucy.
Yeah. Actually, I'd just like to bounce off Satiq's point about the education, because I know that a few years back there was a local association in Lausanne that was used to do workshops for the team novice for figure skating, and also last year I collaborated with the regional skating organization to have an external consultant come in and to present and educate on and raise awareness on safeguarding matters. And that was for people who are part of the regional cadre, but it was also for all of the judges in the Swiss Romande area, for the coaches, all the coaches in the Swiss Romande area, and also for the administrators of the clubs. So I think that was a really fantastic step forward. As with any training, there needs to be refresher training and messages going out continually, and obviously there's always a resource constraint and there's always so many messages to get across and the prioritization, but we know this is important and we have to make the time for it.
Okay, but encouraging that there were workshops effectively that were conducted.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
We just need to build on that now.
Build and continue. It's resource-based. Yeah.
So but if I can just say as well, with regard to the parents, I'd like to flip it around the other side and say that, I am very conscious, I'm sure we've all seen parents behaving badly as well. And I think the safeguarding needs to work both ways. I think the safeguarding, we need to focus on the athlete, but it needs to be all the entourage, and that includes the parents. The parents need to know how to behave. They can be codes of conduct. They need to know how to speak to the coaches or the administrators, and there need to be careful boundaries put in place, because the participation of the parent is fundamental. They have to be part of the process, but there have to be boundaries set as well. It's really important, and codes of conduct are one way of doing that, but we have to make sure that it's really actively changing the culture and behaviors of people and not just a tick the box exercise. And that takes time as well. And we need to prioritize doing that.
Some really useful points that you've raised, exactly, to change the culture, often rules driven to start with, but then it comes up from the grassroots level. Is there anything, Natalie, you'd like to share sort of just maybe on the culture in Switzerland, in Sweden, how you
no, but I would like to say that treat people the way you want to be treated. Focus on the skaters they can develop in a environment for no risk of harm or insecurity. And we all are human beings, we are persons, respect each other, listen to each other, see each other, talk to each other, not around the person, with the person. That's what I want to give and say.
A beautiful conclusion. Thank you, Natalie. I couldn't do better.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to the panelists.
Thank
I
you.
think, that we
Thank you all so much. It's really interesting, and as I said earlier, so important to hear from the people who are the most directly concerned with these matters. So now we're on to questions and answers. We don't really have very much time left, but I just want to ask one question which came in through the Zoom, through the chat and the Zoom, and this is one for Anya. So there's a question about the disclosure process when there's a report, and how the information and rights of the victim and the accused are protected while a safeguarding concern is being looked into. Yeah, maybe you could come up here to answer, and then people can hear you.
Yeah, both sides have rights in this process. In relation to the victim, I think it's important, and it's something we didn't have in our first draft, but we incorporated in second drafts of our policy, that we have the right, even though the process is confidential, to keep the victim updated of where we are with their claim, because sometimes they're in this kind of weird position where maybe we are prosecuting a case and they're just a witness, and maybe they're not automatically entitled to know the status. So we feel it's really important to keep them informed as to where we are with the case, in case there may be ripple effect for them. For example, if we're about to send out a notice of charge to the person they made the accusation against, we would give them the heads up in case that person comes against them, or to make sure that they have the support mechanism around them. So some simple things like that. In relation to the person that's accused, I mean, it's still innocent until proven guilty, but with the asterisks that we still need to approach it from a risk-based approach. And I think the most controversial or difficult thing there is the question of this provisional suspension, because we may feel that we need to impose a provisional suspension in order to safeguard our community. If we think of a coach, if we think of an official, it's not appropriate for them to have access to young members or other members of our community while at an event, while there is this serious question mark over it. At the same time, from their perspective, they do and often complain that they are being prejudged on the matter. So it's very delicate, and before we do anything, of course, they have a full right to be heard. If we impose a provisional suspension, they have a right to apply to an independent tribunal to have that lifted. So there is a level of oversight. And then, of course, in the whole process as we go along, they have the right to put their full side of the story across. So that's how we handle it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. And then I think maybe we've got time for just one more question, and I'd like to ask it to Christina, and whether you can tell us some more information about the kinds of activities that ISU members are planning to use their additional C contribution for safeguarding for. If you've heard in your discussions with them what kind of ideas they have about using this funding.
Thank you for that question, because for the limited amount of time, I didn't have time to express how many good ideas I have heard from the ISU members on the one-on-one conversation. So for example, it depends on the level they already have their safeguarding at. So one, because it's mandatory to have safeguarding in their country, they already had everything put in place. So they were going to use or are going to use the money to actually hire a trainer, an educator, and pay their
flights or trains or accommodation to go to each club and implement either their courses or our courses. But to make sure in situ that the courses were being implemented. Then another one, because it's also mandatory in their country, they were starting their safeguarding efforts. They were going to actually hire a lawyer to do all the policies, procedures, to have a very sound safeguarding documentation with a lawyer, and how also to do procedures for case management. Third one that I remember was for translating. For countries where they have different languages, they were going to use a translator to translate our material or their material. Others were to actually hire a safeguarding consultant, and they were going to use the safeguarding database that IOC has. So the levels are very different, the ideas are very different, and I'm always contactable at safeguarding@isu.ch, so we can continue discussing one-on-one ways to implement it, or other ideas or concerns, or just questions where to start or how to continue.
Thanks, Christina. I hope that's useful for the ISU members who are listening online and who are wondering exactly how they should be using this funding, particularly if they already have a certain number of actions and activities in place. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of our afternoon, and I'd just like to conclude by saying that it's clear from this how valuable it is to have communication among all of us who are involved in safeguarding, up and down and across at all levels of the sport pyramid. And I hope you've learned something today. I mean, we certainly have at the ISU, and listening to what's been happening in federations, in other international federations, in ISU members, and directly from the skaters, coaches and parents. It's really invaluable to informing how we're going to move forward in this area in the next months and years. So thank you to everyone. And I think it's also really important that we're all going in the same direction with this, and whatever sport or whatever level that we are, and we need to not reinvent the wheel all the time, but to share our experiences, to share our resources, to use them in a way that suits our situation the best, but to really build on the experiences that we're all that we'll all have, and that we're all gathering together, and that this way we're going to move forward a little more quickly in towards the goal that we have, and making sure that everyone who is involved in sport at any level and in any way is protected to the best of our ability, and that when bad things happen or inappropriate situations happen, that there's a simple and effective way to deal with it. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us today, and good luck with your safeguarding journey looking forward. Thank you.